What do we think? What do we think about calories? Do they matter? My annoying coworkers are food shaming me. Hi and welcome of another episode of Reddit Q&As where I take the trending questions, answer them, give you some personal opinions, some context tips where you can hopefully start applying some new changes and perspective into your life. I think I really have to find a better intro that sounds a bit easier. All right, let's dive into today's question. So starting off with my annoying coworkers are food shaming me. Okay, so we've got context. So rant about my coworkers. I am a healthy, fit person, but I have a flexible lifestyle. I try to eat healthy, stay on track during the week. I go out and drink on the weekend with no restrictions with my friends and boyfriend. I work in a corporate office where we bring food in all the time. Usually it's unhealthy, pizza, fried food, etc. Sometimes I eat it, especially if it's a bit healthier like Chipotle or something more modifiable. Sometimes I eat the junk food, but my God, I don't want junk food every week, and I often bring my own food. Why does everyone need to comment? One of these cases, okay. You're not eating. Don't you want any cake? Why do you bring your own food? Ugh, you're so healthy. You're not having a crumble cookie? That was my imitation of people's commenting. It makes me feel uncomfortable, and I know it's probably their insecurity, but they think I'm judging them, which I am not. Mind you, I have IBS, gut issues, and it's easy for me to be in charge of my own food. Ugh. All right, this is a great topic to discuss, and I'd like to hear some of your opinions in the comments if you experience anything like this yourself. I've been a trainer for over a decade now, and it's a conversation that I have to have with a lot of my clients. A lot of the gyms I worked in London and Norway involved a lot of corporate type clients, which had to do the same thing. Now, if you're lucky and you're fortunate to work in a big company, they might have a cafeteria and a self-service lunch. But if your environment is where they bring in junk food all the time and you're the oddball out, you will get bullied. You will get called names. People will talk shit about you. It's just the nature, because they are uncomfortable and insecure and they're not willing to make the change. And because you stand out, you're just the oddball out. The conversation I had with a client of mine last week, she started tracking her diary with her nutrition and she started making better choices, and her coworkers started commenting, "Oh, you're tracking your food? What are you? Oh, you want an eating disorder or something like that?" But the reality is she's care of her body. She started taking care of her gut. She cares what goes into her mouth and her body and how it responds. Unlike most people, just consume whatever they want and they don't care. So I think cases like this are important, especially if you're in an environment and you're by yourself, to just, you can't just say, "Oh, don't give an F," and deal with it, because this stuff gets to you. It will eat you up, pun intended. Eventually it gets to us all, especially if you are alone in that environment. So my best case of advice is actually change the environment if that is the one thing you can control. So if it's lunchtime and you bring your own food and you want to have your own lunch, have your lunch outside if they're eating pizza in the corporate lunchroom. It might be a nice day. You might get some fresh air. It might be good for you. You might be the loner, but again, a lot of the time at work, we're not there to make friends. We're there to work, get the job done and get out. And we have friends and social lives outside of our jobs. Now, if you are not in that position, of course, you can. And it is not your job to defend yourself. It is not your job to explain yourself. You don't know anything to anyone. So you shouldn't be stressing about, I'm going to eat my pizza. I'm not judging you and kind of explaining yourself. This is not about that. I think it's healthy to rant a little bit about it and get it out of your system. And at some point, maybe one of these people might come up to you, pull you to the side and say, hey Kat, hey John, how are you doing this? Can I get some advice? Because I think it is more common than people realize. So the next time your coworkers bully you about your healthy eating habits, honestly, just tell them to go do one. And stick to yourself and your goals, because at the end of the day, that's what matters more. That's just my opinion. 5 days into the food journal, and I can see the problem now. Interesting, we've got some context. 5 days ago, I bought a pocket notebook and started recording what I ate and drank in a day. Not bothering with the times, just started with noting everything. I always knew I didn't overeat. I can see that I'm not overeating, but what I now realize is that almost all of what I eat is junk food. Well, this kind of ties in nicely from the last question. I only eat 1 to 2 meals a day. Normal meals, normal portions, not super healthy, not super unhealthy either. Typical pasta meals, potatoes, vegetables, and meat. Typical family meals. I don't eat breakfast, as if I'd eat within the first few hours of waking. I get really nauseous and occasionally vomit. To make up for the lack of eating 3 meals, I'm snacking, and what I snack on is junk. Never really realized just how much of my snacking is junk. It's only something small at a time, so I thought a little bit can't hurt that much. But seeing it written down has forced me to see how much those small snacks add up over a day. Massively, they really do. The little things add up so quickly, people don't realize until they put it on pen and paper. Now we have a little bit more. So 5 days in, and it's been 2 days since I had a chocolate bar. I bought a variety of fruit snacks, both fresh and dried, and I've started cutting back on full fat soda, swapping for some of the 0 calories or cups with teas and squash. Baby steps, as I am ADHD, and 2 of a sudden changes will not work with me. I need to be gradual. That is a very good approach. It's very smart. The most important thing now is that I can see where I've been going wrong, and I'm making steps to change my eating for better. Doctors have told me to do food journals before, but I've always dismissed the idea. Now I see the benefits of it. Okay, I love this topic because I'm currently doing that with 3 of my new onboarding clients online. And the usual process with nutrition is this in the beginning. I want to see what people's habits are, so I introduce them to a food diary and I say, okay, give me a log for the next week or 2 or a month, depending on the person, and let's start writing down your nutrition. It could be pen and paper, it could be a calorie tracking app. You could literally just take pictures of your food as you're about to consume it and send it to coaching app, so I can have like a log and a diary of your nutrition. And then we can start seeing the trends and the patterns, because the thing is, most of us are not getting fat because we eat too much. We get fat because we eat without thinking, which leads to us eating too much. So it becomes a calorie surplus. But when I ask you how much did you eat, you say, oh, I didn't really eat that much. And you probably don't eat that much because you don't remember the stuff you put on autopilot when you were stressed, when you were nervous, when you were anxious. The snacking, the little habits add up. I'll have something like 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day sitting at home. Most of the time it might be black, but I can easily add a dash of oatmeal milk, which is about 50 to 80 calories per cup. So potentially I could, depending on the day, consume about 300 to 500 calories extra in oat milk alone in my coffee, which for most people will ruin their calorie deficit, take them back to maintenance, or put them into surplus. So my recommendation is do exactly what this person is doing. Log everything you eat. Pen and paper, calorie tracking apps, pictures, and have an overview of what goes into your mouth from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And then after a week, sit down or upload it to ChatGPT if you have to and objectively analyze it. See where your patterns are, because I guarantee we all have patterns. I am a stress eater myself. When my anxiety and my stress is through the roof because I'm under pressure from something, I will go for chocolate. If it's in the house, I will go for it. If I have a box of candy, I don't open it, because if I do, I won't stop. I just know myself. Knowing your own habits and your own patterns and trends is so important in your nutrition, in your fitness. It's just like your life. You know your triggers and your patterns, you're just generally better. So that's what I would recommend everybody tries at some point in their life. And question number 3, last one for the day, is calorie counting works in theory, but has anyone else found it completely unsustainable in real life? Okay, this one stood out to me, so I really wanted to dive into the context here. Okay, I've tried calorie counting properly at least 4 times over the past few years. Every time it starts the same way. I'm diligent for a week or 2, I'm logging everything, I'm hitting my numbers, and then one day I eat something I can't easily log, or I'm too tired to bother, or I'm at a restaurant where the whole system just falls apart. And once the streak breaks, it somehow feels like the whole effort is ruined, like I have to start over, which I never do. The thing bothers me the most is that calorie counting treats every food the same as long as the number matches. But I've noticed that some foods that fit my calorie budget leave me exhausted and hungry 2 hours later, while others keep me going all day. The number clearly isn't the whole story. That's true. I'm curious whether people have found other approaches to food awareness that actually stick long term. Not necessarily calorie counting, but something that builds a genuine understanding of how different foods affect energy, hunger, without turning every meal into a math problem. Oh boy, this question is something, huh? Okay, I'm gonna read the first comment because it stands out and it's interesting and it's a good point. So someone replied saying, it's your mindset that's the problem. If you skip one meal, continue on with the next, or just guess, enter in something that sounds close. It won't be completely accurate, but it's better than giving up. I lost 85 pounds through calorie counting and exercise. I don't count anymore. The portion sizes are ingrained in my head now. But if I start gaining weight, I count for a few weeks, make sure I'm not drifting off track, and lose the weight again. That's probably the best answer you're going to get out of this, honestly. The thing is, calorie counting can seem incredibly overwhelming and time consuming if you don't understand how to use it, if you don't know the tools or the way to think about it. A lot of it is down to your mindset, but the mindset is not something you just learn. It's something you're taught by given the right tools. So I'll give you a few examples of how we can do calorie counting and tracking and nutrition. So for example, you say that you've tried for a couple times over the years, even though you say you give up and you stop, but you have tried it a few times, but it doesn't stick. You also mentioned that some food is different in terms of energy, and that is also a very, very big point. So clearly you're taking an objective approach to calorie counting, but you're not actually understanding the inherent problems, the habits, the way the food influences your day. Calorie counting is not just numbers, it's understanding why the numbers matter and why do we care about protein and fats and carbs and the roles they play. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a dietitian to suddenly put 1 grain of rice, 1 piece of chicken, some broccoli on your plate and become super obsessed. But what I am saying is if you track a donut versus a full dinner, you will see the energy that will crash, you will spike in blood sugars, and you will feel differently because the micronutrients, the things that make up those calories, completely different. That's why you're going all over the place. So when you track calories, you should be focusing on the macronutrients more than the calories per se. What I will do with most people is set them a caloric goal and then we'll work on specific macro goals. Say for example, I set your goal of 1800 calories a day circa, and I'll set your goal for fiber saying hitting at least 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, which helps with digestion, promotes a healthy gut. It also makes sure that you get enough fruit and vegetable in a day. And then we'll focus on protein as the secondary or first macronutrient depending on the person and their goals. Carbs and fats will be a secondary or third focus depending on what phase of tracking, dieting, or where we are with your training. Because once you understand the basics of getting enough protein and fiber, the rest of your plate looks a lot easier and nutrition and calorie counting become a lot more sustainable. If you got to a restaurant and you fall off track because you couldn't put in the meal you had, that is a mindset problem, not a tracking problem. You go to any restaurant and you order anything off the menu. It could be a margarita pizza, it could be spaghetti bolognese. You open up your calorie tracking app, let's take MyFitness for example, and you type in spaghetti bolognese and it will say generic spaghetti bolognese, 1 plate, and you put that in. It will probably be off maybe 300 calories, maybe 100 calories. It doesn't matter. The habit and routine of tracking is still there. The other way to approach your nutrition and calorie tracking is actually systemizing your nutrition by eating the same meals. I'll go through phases where I'll do the same breakfast for 3 months at a time. Now, you might be like, oh, I hate eating the same stuff. Then you're making your life harder. Or you're not making the food good enough that you enjoy. I make oatmeal banana pancakes for breakfast and I have some cottage cheese and jam on the side. It's nutritious, it's high in calories, it's high in fiber, it's high in protein. It keeps me full and I love it. It is one of the best breakfasts I've had. And I'm going to be stuck on that probably for the next 6 months. Then I'll rotate to my secondary breakfast. Probably the same calories, probably the same micronutrients. I'll repeat it. So when I make that breakfast, I don't have to track the breakfast. I just type in oatmeal pancakes. It's the recipe that I've got saved in MyFitnessPal. I know that the measurements are more or less the same. Maybe 50 calories off, maybe 100 calories off, it doesn't matter. The habit and routine is still there. I know my time when I'm eating my breakfast. I know the time I have my lunch because it's an autopilot. I no longer have to think about my calories or nutrition the same way. Just like the person who commented who lost 85 pounds. He says if you start gaining a bit of weight, track your calories for a couple of weeks, see where your numbers are. Are you overeating? Have you developed new habits that are throwing off your tracks? Reassess, reevaluate, and continue. That's it. And that's today's episode. Honestly, I'm going to be brutal. I'm going to be straight with that because I think it's important. Shifting your mindset is so much more important than just sticking with the numbers. If you like this episode, feel free to leave a like. I'm trying to get 100 subs, so feel free to subscribe and I'll catch you in the next one.